It all starts with a little bundle of fur, a puppy with potential. And with lots of love and guidance and training, that puppy can become the support that changes a person's life. Does that seem like a lot of responsibility for a little pup? Well, at Guide Dogs of America, these pups are literally born to do the job. The dogs are bred at their Sylmar facility, and then the vitally important job of raising and socializing those puppies falls to volunteers.
Congratulations!
After a year of learning the ropes of how to be a very good dog, they start the serious business of training to be life-changing companions to those who need them.
Thank you.
And not just the blind and visually impaired, but veterans, individuals on the autism spectrum, and those undergoing trauma can have the opportunity to share their lives with a dog who is so much more than just a pet.
I know he's going to have my back all the time. He even told me a long time ago that nothing's ever going to happen to me on his watch, and so far he's done a hell of a job.
Fox 11 News In Depth starts right now. Hello everyone, I'm Hal Eisner and welcome to Sylmar and the newly renovated campus for Guide Dogs of America. This is a fantastic place that raises and breeds and trains dogs and helps so many people in so many ways, and not just the visually impaired. They do a lot more than that, and of course they don't do it alone. They do it with a whole host of volunteers. We want to start off with Zack Gittlen. Zack is the marketing manager here, and Zack, thanks for having us here and hosting us here. First of all, tell us a little bit about Guide Dogs of America. This started back, what, 1948, give or take?
Yeah, so welcome to Guide Dogs of America. We've been around since 1948, and we were founded because a guy named Joseph Jones wanted to get a guide dog, and he was 57 years old. And all the guide dog schools at the time said, "You're too old." So he said, "Screw you guys, I'm gonna go start my own school."
57 was too old?
57 was too old.
Goodness.
It was too old. So we've been around since then, and what we do is we breed, raise, and train guide dogs for people that are blind, service dogs for veterans with PTSD or mobility issues, and then place them with families who have children with autism.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about here, but let's talk about how this program works. So just the basics of how this program works.
Well, there's a lot that goes into it. If I gave you a standard tour here, it would probably take 2-3 hours to go through the whole process. It starts with the breeding of the dogs, selectively breeding for all the right characteristics that goes into work. Then they go home to a volunteer puppy raiser who raises them to be a really good dog. And then we bring them back in for training, teach them all the skills, and then we host them here on our campus to pair them and partner them with their forever partner.
You know, we tend to think about guide dogs being for the visually impaired or profoundly blind, and yet that's not just the case. It is so many other people as well, like?
So we just merged with Loving Canines in 2020, and now we offer dogs to veterans with PTSD issues. So the dogs offer a lot of therapy for the veterans. They can help with mobility issues like fetching and retrieving, and the same goes for families impacted by autism. The dogs can alleviate anxiety, stressful situations. They can help the child develop communication skills that they might be struggling with, and then of course motor skills as well.
I got to tell you, it's phenomenal. I'm so impressed with dogs I've watched over the years and decades. Police dogs and dogs at airports that sniff out drugs, and dogs that help the blind, dogs that help with PTSD and help veterans. What is with dogs?
I mean, have you ever
I love
had
dogs.
I know.
Yeah, but what is it about dogs?
Well, there's science behind it. So the first thing is that there's, a natural chemical release, but there's so much other things that go into it. So the social interaction is a big thing that we talk about here. One of our graduates famously says, when I used to have my cane, no one would ever come up to me and say, "That's a cool cane that you've got there." But now that I have my guide dog, people come up to me all the time and start a conversation, and it really opens up so many doors to their lives outside of just helping them with whatever disability they might have.
Yeah, and as we're going to find out, dogs work, and when they work, you're not supposed to pet them or love them, but when they're off duty, different story. But I have to ask you about some other basic things, like how do you pay for all this stuff?
Well, that's my job as the development manager here, is to raise money to support this program all year long. We raise money a bunch of different ways, whether it's fundraisers or planned gifts people can leave us in their estate or their will. There's corporations that sponsor us. There's grants that we receive. There's all sorts of things that go into making this happen.
I know that there's probably, what, about 450, 500 volunteers in all. How many dogs do you deal with?
Ooh, God, couple hundred puppies every year. And then there's dogs that are in for training. That's another, 60 to 100 at a time. And then we have about 300 active graduates around the U.S. and Canada.
So if you go back to 1948,
Yeah.
we're talking about thousands of dogs.
Yes, yeah, we've changed that. Well, thousands of lives changed.
Yeah, thousands of lives changed. And so what kind of dogs make the best service dogs?
So we predominantly work with Labradors. I call them like the Toyota Camry of dogs because they're just so reliable. There's characteristics in them like that make them easier to train. We can breed them for different sizes. We also breed Golden Retrievers and German Shepherds, and then we cross the Golden Retrievers and the Labs for what we call crosses.
Now, you deal with the U.S., you also deal with Canada.
Yep.
And do all those dogs, like up in Canada, come from here?
Yes.
They do?
Yeah, this is headquarters.
This is headquarters. And so how many dogs do you think you have up in that northern tier?
Oh, God, a dozen, 2 dozen.
So not that many.
Not that many.
Most of them are domestic here in the United States.
Most of them are throughout here, Southern California, and then pretty much split between there and the rest of the United States.
There's so many things that you wonder about when it comes to these service dogs. You see them all the time. Restaurants now, tend to allow them in. You see signs that say service dogs okay. Yeah, this has been a process, though, for so long, and we only have about a minute left in this segment. So just tell me, how difficult has the political part of this been, trying to get access and trying to make it so people could take their dogs into places where otherwise they maybe couldn't before?
Well, the ADA covers the people that we work with because they have a specific disability. The part that's become more difficult in the past couple of years is the emotional support animals. And there's a difference. A service dog is trained for a disability, and an emotional support animal is there for therapy. And what we found is that people just slapping a vest on and calling it an emotional support animal and abusing that term has made it more difficult for our folks that really do need their dogs with them because the emotional support animals aren't always trained and leave a bad impression.
All right, Zack Gittlen, thanks so much. We're going to have you back in the next segment. But coming up next on Fox 11 News In Depth, we'll be talking about Guide Dogs of America and meet one of the lucky volunteers who gets to take a puppy home and show it the first steps on its path to becoming a service dog. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 11 News In Depth. I'm Hal Eisner, and one of the biggest problems they have here at Guide Dogs of America may absolutely shock you. Take a look at these guys right here. The problem that they face is not enough volunteers to take home these ridiculously adorable puppies and take care of them for 1 year. I find that really hard to believe. It's just amazing because I want all of them. I've already told them that out here. I'll take every one of them. But of course, it requires a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment, and a lot of time. Dana Jenke is one of those who's done that. She's from Simi Valley. And Diana, thanks for joining us. You've been a volunteer for how many years?
About 11 years.
About 11 years. Tell me a little bit about that process.
The volunteering part, I started because I had a friend who was also doing it, and I thought, let me try to do this. I was a principal at a middle school at a time, and started bringing a puppy with me because it was just something that I wanted to do, felt I could give back, and at the same time raise a puppy.
Now let's take a look at your puppy there. This is Jude.
Yes.
Hey, Jude. I remember that song. You remember that song?
I do.
Jude does not remember that song. How old is Jude?
Jude is 6 months old.
Tell me about Jude.
She is a puppy. She takes a work and commitment to be able to get her to do the things she does. Just sitting here like this. Jude, sit. To be able to do that for a long period of time is tough. So that's my job, is to prepare her for the bigger world.
Now, there's these bonding questions.
Yeah.
First you get the puppy, then the puppy lives for a long time, and then the puppy's gone, and then the bonding. How many puppies have you had?
She's number 9.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. So tell me how that bonding thing has been for you, and the unbonding.
I've loved every single one of them, and there's a place in my heart for every single one. And of those, I have 4 that are working or in the process of gotten ready for work, and then I have 4 that were career changed. One is a longtime pet of mine, and others have gone off to do wonderful things with other people.
Just give me a couple of ideas of things that you couldn't have done maybe without the dog along as a companion.
Oh, well, I mean, the dogs you know, let's face it, I've been through some life things, and I've had these dogs by my side during some of this, and they get me through it because, you know, you can talk to dogs and it's unconditional love and, you know, that kind of stuff. Being able to go out into the community with a dog, if I don't have a dog and I'm out in the community, sometimes it's like I feel empty. You know, having a dog out in the community creates people having conversations with you and you being able to spread the good word about guide dogs.
And tell me about the training part.
For me, you know, you get support from the Canine Development Department here at Guide Dogs. They don't just hand you a puppy and say, see you in 18 months. They're here to support you. I'm also an area leader, so I help support other brand new puppy raisers by doing activities and going out and about and taking classes and helping them with struggles that they have, because we have struggles with them. You know, they're puppies. So you have to sometimes work through some of the tougher stuff.
What would you tell people who might like to do this but maybe aren't sure?
I would say give it a try, because if you are at all interested in making a difference in somebody else's life as well as your own, then I would say give it a try. The support is there. The support is absolutely there from area leaders and from GDA personnel.
All right, thank you so much. And you too, Jude. And I want to get back over here to Zach, because Zach, give us an idea, if you will, about what's involved in becoming a volunteer and this problem that you have. I find it hard to believe that it's hard to find volunteers.
Well, it's a big commitment, but at the end of the day, people like Diana are the only reason we're able to do what we do. And they're special people. They're some of our best volunteers. If they're interested, or if you're interested in raising a puppy, go to our website. There's a contact form, fill it out, fill out the application. You'll see where your area group might be, what the meeting times are. We'll receive your application and we'll send someone to do a home visit, make sure that it's a proper home for a dog to be raised in. And then if you're approved, we'll place you with the next upcoming litter that we have available.
What kind of people are you looking for?
We're looking for anybody, all sorts of people. We're looking for retirees, we're looking for school teachers, we're looking for single people. These dogs, we don't know who they're going to go to at the end of the day. So it's not like we're just looking for families of 4. We're looking for all sorts of different types of environments so that our dogs are exposed to different things.
What if they have other pets in their home, their apartment?
That's even better. We want our dogs to have exposure to different animals in the home. That way, they're comfortable around different types of animals.
All right, so one thing that's really amazing is that you have inmate trainers.
Yeah.
Trainers in prison. You got to tell me about that.
So that's one of my favorite parts of the program, is that when we merged with Tender Loving Canines, they had a prison program going on. And it really does, you know, a service dog that we place transforms the recipient's life. But when these inmate trainers are raising dogs for us, it transforms their lives as well. You hear them say, this was the first time that I did something of value for the community. It's the first time I felt good about myself learning a skill set. I learned how to communicate with others. We only use positive reinforcement in the prison, so they never correct the dog. They're only telling the dog when it does something right. And that transfers over to life skills for these folks that are in prison, that maybe were in a gang or whatnot and only ever learn to fight their way to get things. They learn how to positively get what they want.
You told me earlier, and we only have about a minute left, you told me earlier that you have puppies, but the puppies really can't even come out yet because they're kind of what, neonatal kind of puppies? What's the term you used?
Neonate, newborns, whatever, whatnot.
Yeah. So what's the next batch of puppies? When could more puppies be available for people to take?
So the next litter that's going to be available is within the next month. We have a litter on the ground now. We have a couple litters coming. The truth is that we got to plan, when we're breeding these dogs now, it's 2 years down the road until they're going to be placed. So we need to make sure we have enough dogs for folks 2 years from now that are going to need them. I
see. Big process. And, of course, you have a website, and we're going to get to that in the next segment. But coming up next on Fox 11 News in depth, the impact, the incredible impact of getting one of these guide dogs or service dogs. It's totally indescribable. It can literally change lives. And we'll talk to a couple of people about what that's like and what it's meant to them. On the other side of the break, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We're in Sylmar at Guide Dogs of America, and Lori Bernson, who is a beneficiary of a guide dog, is with us this segment. And Lori, tell me a little bit about how you got involved, why this was so important in your life. I know you're visually impaired. I know that's an issue for her. Tell us a little bit about your dog, Captain.
Well, I have been visually impaired due from the reason from diabetes. I lost my vision about 26 years ago. And I really didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I came across the idea of getting a guide dog. And Captain here is actually my third guide dog. And he's 5 years old. He's a yellow lab. And he's the third dog to absolutely change my life like I never would have imagined.
All right, let's take those words. Absolutely changed my life.
Absolutely.
Translate that.
Absolutely changed my life, AKA I have done things with my guide dogs that gone out to different places and done just life-changing experiences that I would not have done even if I had sight.
And I know, we talked in the last segment with Diana about bonding, and you bond with these guys and then they go away and then you kind of have to unbond, you bond with another. What's that like?
Well, for me, I mean, the minute these dogs walk into our lives as people needing service animals, service dogs, it's an instant, oh my gosh, this dog is here to change my life and make my life better. They usually work until they're around 10 years of age, and that's when the hard part comes and you think about the dog having to retire.
Yeah.
Just because of age, like people, we get a little bit older, we slow down, so you don't want to risk having a guide dog that's slowing down in the process. So that's when you start to think about the bond. And the bond doesn't necessarily break, it just changes. For instance, I visited my previous guide dog yesterday, and the bond is incredibly there. It's just that I don't depend on our life and our safety with him because he's retired.
I got it.
So our bond is very tight.
What a thing. Now, I want to also have Luis Pagarin, who's with us in San Diego. He's on Zoom right now, and he's a different recipient. You're a veteran. So Luis, tell us a little bit about why you have a guide dog and how that guide dog helps you.
Well, thanks for having me. This dog came into my life at my wife's urging. I have a friend, Dan, who also received a dog from Loving Canines. And I saw the change that it made in his life. And I had already been applying at other organizations, and I applied with them. I met a couple of dogs before I was eventually paired with Shield. Shield was trained at the Camp Pendleton Brig. So she was trained by inmates. And we, after being paired, we went to school together in Sylmar at the facility where you're at. And we spent a week together training and getting our bond going. And, when this dog came into my life, I did not go out in public at all. I would go to work and I would come home. If I had to do anything in public, I would have my wife with me. And this is how I went to dog school. So every day they had us go out in public. So I experienced the trauma and the triggering and the hypervigilance that happens when I go into public with this dog. And, it's been 2 years now. I have set many goals in my therapy. And one of those was to start going to baseball games. I'm born and raised in Los Angeles. So I'm a Dodger fan. And on 9/11 of 2021, we were at a Los Angeles Dodgers baseball game in Dodger Stadium, me and this dog. And my mother and wife were with me too. But that's just one example of the growth that we've experienced together.
So we hear that PTSD is an issue for a lot of veterans, and that's why these dogs are helpful. And so what does a dog do? I'm believing that PTSD is an issue that you deal with as well. And so given that, what does a dog do when you're having a trigger of some kind?
One of the things that she can do is, much like I'm sitting down right now, is she can provide what's called deep pressure therapy, shield release, lap. Come on, lap. Mm-hmm. So she'll sit on my lap, and the command is called squish. and she puts her body weight on my body, which kind of brings me back and, you know, reminds me that I have a cute, cuddly dog in front of me, and that I can pet the dog instead of spiraling down that, you know, wormhole of trauma that is part of my life now. I do talk about this quite regularly. I have been very active as much as possible with GDA and TLC about outreach and helping people understand what this work is. And, you know, none of it goes away. This is something that I have to live with. I live with post-traumatic stress disorder. I live with anxiety, hypervigilance, and nightmares. And none of it goes away, but I'm learning how to manage it. I'm learning how to mitigate it, and I'm learning how to have a normal life. And this dog and everybody that's been a part of her breeding, rearing, training, and everything is part of me having a normal life. And it took a village. It took a village, and it's been 2 years. And
man, I'll tell you that. And it's so good to hear. Luis, it's so good to hear. Thank you so much. I want to come back over here to Lori for a second. We have just a little less than a minute. And I want to ask you one question, because
Sure.
you and I talked about something earlier. We talked about if somebody comes up to you and you have a service dog, they shouldn't come up and pet the dog. What should they do? And how do you know, how does the dog know if it's working or not working?
Well, the dogs are trained starting with the jacket that they wear, which in turn becomes a harness that they'll be wearing.
20 seconds left.
20 seconds left. When you see a working guide dog, as with any dog, ask if you want to pet them.
And if you take that off, what happens?
Because you don't want to distract a working guide dog, because they know when they're in harness, they're working.
And when you take it off?
And when you take it off,
hey, buddy.
go say hi.
Hey, good to see you.
And that he wouldn't do.
Now he wants to play, right?
Now he wants to play. If the
Okay.
harness goes back on, he's clocked back in.
Captain and Lowry, thanks so much.
Hey,
good to
thanks for
see you.
having us. It's a
And
pleasure.
Fox 11 News and Death will continue right after this. And finally, if you haven't already, check out my podcast. It's called What the Hell? And you can get it wherever you subscribe to podcasts, or just go to whatthehellpodcast.com. And you can hear the audio version of this program on that, or when you're walking your dog or driving or whenever. And that's it for this week's Fox 11 News in Depth. Thanks so much for joining us. And let's leave you with some more looks of these very, very cute little puppies. Bye-bye, everybody. See you next time.